I'm Chris Hahn, the Aggressive Progressive. Check out a new episode of the Aggressive Progressive podcast every Tuesday. You know, the election is heating up just as the year is winding down. Stick with me. I'll tell you the truth as I see it. Download the Aggressive Progressive on Pandora or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ice-T. I want you to do something for me. Make sure you download and subscribe Library Rap, the hip-hop interviews with Tim Ironcal. It is fucking official, all right? Stop playing. Download and subscribe Library Rap, the hip-hop interviews with Tim Ironcal. It's cold.
Please give it up for Poetri.
What's up, y'all? This is Brother Ali in the mix with Tim Ironcal on the Library. Keep it right here.
All I want to know is, where did Krispy Kreme donuts come from? What sick man invented this? I see the sign every day, because I'm in there every freaking day.
My next guest is a Tony Award winner, a 7-time Def Poet, an artist, a producer. He was invited to the White House under Obama and has worked with artists such as Malcolm Jamal Warner, LL Cool J, and many more. His name is Poetri, and I want to welcome him to the library with Tim Ironcal. Thank you for joining me, man.
Hey, no problem. Glad to be here. Black man down and round. So when the revolution comes back around, all the black men would be too fat to fight, going through withdrawal symptoms, addicted to the KKK, made to order, glazed donuts.
So my understanding is, Poetri, you grew up in Michigan and you started writing poems about the age of 11, and you started kind of rapping a few years later. So I was trying to do the math without looking at your birth date, and I think that was probably around 85, 86. So I'm just curious, what were your kind of your poetic influences, and then what were your rap influences at this time?
Well, first of all, thank you for putting my age all out in the atmosphere. That's what I want to first thank you for. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. I appreciate that. That's a good one. My influences, my main influence is God. He is the source of my writing. Not that every poem I write about is about God, but I'm saying obviously because you've heard some of my stuff, but he definitely is an influence on how I write and what I write about, because it comes through him. As far as human people, when I was young, there weren't many people that influenced me that wrote poetry, because it wasn't. It was, it was still an underground thing. It's still an underground thing, but it became bigger as I got older. Influences just as artists of Michael Jackson, actors Denzel Washington. They all influenced just how they carried themselves, and that just went on through my writings.
When you first started writing, I imagine it took a little bit of time for you to want to actually share your work. So do you remember that? Do you remember when you finally felt comfortable enough to share your poems, and who you shared that with?
Well, the funny thing is, I didn't share my poems until I moved to Los Angeles, because I was writing poems when I was, like I said, about 11 years old. I used to get in trouble, so that was my punishment: is go to your room and can't play outside and can't play with any toys. I'm like, you can't play with any toys? What am I supposed to do? So I would end up reading or writing. I can't stand my parents, but whatever I was writing. So all those poems I just never read. And then I started rapping, and then I realized that I wasn't good at rapping, but I stuck with it for 4 or 5 years. And then I went back to poetry when I moved back to LA. So even though there's a thin line between rap and poetry, I still put them totally different. My rap was something rapping, and then my poems, were something different. So I just started reading those poems until I moved out to LA, which was 20 years later.
Is the content? I mean, I was curious. I guess what is that line that makes rapping and poetry different? Is it the content? Is it? I mean, what is it? The wordplay or?
Yeah, I'm sure it's different for each artist. Mine was the content. My poetry is much on a deeper level. I felt like I couldn't get that deeper level in rapping. I was just, again, I wasn't good at it, so that's probably why. But I was just rapping just to be rapping. You know what I mean? It wasn't
right.
It wasn't something that I had passion for necessarily. I was rapping because I was a kid, and it was like, hey, you want to rap? Yeah, sure, I'll rap. All right, So it wasn't something that I took as serious as I take my poetry. So I think it's the content is more of the difference, the deepness of what I was saying.
Even though you weren't sharing your poems at this time, did you? I guess who was kind of nurturing this? Was it just nurturing this art form with you? Was it just you? Was it your parents? I mean, was it a teacher?
Oh, it was absolutely unequivocally just me. Nobody really. That's what I'm saying. But nobody really. Not saying cared, because that wasn't my. I didn't know that I was gonna. At that age, I didn't know that I was gonna be, a poet. Go on Broadway and do all this stuff. I was just writing as a means of release. So it wasn't something that I shared as much. It wasn't something that I talked about, like, hey, I'm a writer. Nothing, because my goal was at the time. My goal was basketball. So I was all in on basketball. That was when I was going to be an NBA star. Oh, I also write. You know what I mean? But mostly I play ball.
When you moved out to LA, when did you? I guess what was the first kind of the validation that said to you, like, all right, I'm a poet. I'm not a basketball player. I'm actually a poet. I'm actually really good at this.
Well, I read it's a funny story because I met a lady on the bus. And she's like, hey, I have this poetry reading. I'm like, poetry reading? Oh, yeah, because I could come and check out. I didn't even know they have poetry readings. You mean you read your poems? I would literally like, you read your poems? She's like, yeah, you should come out and watch it. She didn't know if I was a poet. She just saw me on the bus. She was a talkative person. So I went to this poetry reading, and these people were reading their poems. And I was, like, blown away. I'm like, oh, my God, these people are reading their poems that they wrote. I just could not understand that this is something big. I was like, I love LA. So the next week I came and read this poem, and it was received well, and I was like, okay, so I got addicted. But then when I really realized that I had a gift, is I wrote a poem about not having any money. It was called Money.
My money's been acting funny lately. And I don't mean how.
When I first wrote that poem, like I was crying and in tears because I didn't have any money. It was a serious poem, But I read it, and everybody related to it so much that they were laughing and cracking up, not at me, but just relating to the poem. It was hilarious to them. And I'm like, I'm on stage crying while I'm reading it, and everybody's laughing. And I'm like, what? And people come up to me after, oh my God, I feel you. I'm just like you. And I was like, wow, there's a connection here that I didn't quite understand until much later. That this truth that I'm writing, even though it is very serious to me, has a humorous effect, and humor always touches people. So that's when I started to learn that my writing is very funny, but has a deeper meaning that connects with people as well.
She won't go to movies with me. She won't even go get nothing to eat. And you know a brother can't eat without money. Don't you know I miss you? I want you. Okay, I need you to survive. My life revolves around you. I can't replace your money. Believe me, I've tried. There's only so much bread and water I can take. Call me spoiled, but I remember the days when people used to see us at the hottest clubs, the expensive restaurants.
Oh, so you originally, because something that when I was, looking up and, watching old video of you at Def Poetry, but also other performances you do, you come off as like a very, like a humorous, type of poet. I came across like a New York Post article in 2002 that called you the funny bard of Def Jam.
Right.
So to me, I was so one of the questions I came up with was, we were introduced to you as this poet that discussed real issues, but in a very, comedic way. But it sounds like that wasn't your plan.
Not at all.
How did you kind of learn to, I guess, appreciate people's humor in poetry versus being like, no, people, I'm a serious poet. Take me seriously. Stop laughing. Stop. I know you're laughing at me, but stop laughing.
Well, that day was the realization. Now, I'm not saying that I was hardcore serious, but I did think that I was a serious. I am a serious poet, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I wasn't writing for comics. I wasn't writing for comic relief. I was just writing literally all my early poems. Money, dating myself. I was single and I was sad. You know what I mean? I was like, I gotta find somebody. It was a dead serious poem.
Well, I have a whole lot of that. I see these happy couples and I used to think, what do I have to do to get a girl like that? And then that evolved into, what do I have to do to get a girl?
And that's what I'm saying. Through the years, I started to realize, wow, even though I'm writing these serious issues, like this is true to me, they're coming out on paper. They're coming out as comical, but yet still underground, under feeling that people are like, oh my God, I feel you. I love it. I'm laughing in appreciation of understanding what you're talking about. So it was a process of learning fully of this gift. Probably, I would say from that moment that I read the Money poem, probably another 5, 6, 7 years before I really realized, wait a minute, this is something unique that I have. Thank the Lord. It's not bragging. I'm saying this is just something weird that I really didn't understand.
Than me. It's not like I'm dating my cousin or nothing. I looked it up. There's nothing in the law books that say a man can't date himself. I don't know why I didn't think of this before. I amaze myself sometimes. I laugh and joke with myself on lonely days, praying hard for better days. Now we can get through the rough times.
I want to ask you a little later about your poem, "The Atheist," and the humor part of that and the serious part of that. But I also want to go back to, we, as mentioned, you're part of HBO. You were part of HBO's Def Poetry Jam, and then you're also part of the Broadway version of it.
Right. And
you were one of 9 poets in the Def Poetry Jam on Broadway. Just curious, how did you, quote unquote, beat out? I imagine all these poets tried out for the Broadway version. What was the audition process like? Do you remember what poem kind of like solidified your spot with the Broadway version of Def Poetry Jam?
I'd like to tell myself that it was my good looks that got me into the thing, but I don't think that's the truth. But I like to live that dream. There was not actually, for me at least. For me, there wasn't actually, I was just chosen. There wasn't actually an audition process. I didn't send in any poems or anything like that. It was just the fact, from what I was understanding from Stan and Russell, is that they took 9 poets from the show, the television show, the top 9 poets that were getting the most feedback, the most people talked about. They took those top 9 poets and put us together, from what I'm understanding, because I didn't throw any. All I got a call and say, "Would you like to be interested?" It wasn't Broadway first; it was San Francisco. Would you like to be interested to be hooked up with these poets, and we're going to do a show in San Francisco? They never said anything about Broadway, so we hooked up and did the show in San Francisco, and it was such a success. We moved on to Broadway.
When it moved over to Broadway, it seemed that you were also. The seasons of HBO's Def Poetry Jam were still going. Yeah. I think you were doing both at the same time.
No, well,
you weren't.
That's funny. That's the funny thing. I did the first season. That's why I was so surprised they even called me to do the San Francisco thing. I did the first season of Def Poetry, even though I was a 7th time, because on a couple episodes, a couple seasons, I did two poems, 1 poem, and so I was on a couple episodes. But the first season I did. And then the second season, they didn't call me back to do the second season. So I never did the second season. And I was like, what? Why are these other poets coming back? I'm not coming back. And I just thought it was over. And then literally after they finished taping the second season, they called me to do San Francisco. And I'm like, really confused. And then from then on, I did the rest of the seasons of Def Poetry. Like I said, I did a couple in 2 poems in the 4th season, 2 poems, necessarily on the show when they actually called me to do the show. You know what I mean? It's weird.
What was the major difference for you in terms of, did you have to adjust at all in terms of performing in San Francisco, performing on Broadway versus performing on the HBO special? In terms of like the audience reaction, participation, did you ever feel you had to adjust your poem in a certain way, or your performance in a certain way?
Not necessarily my performance. The poems had to be shorter on Broadway. Stan was a stickler for that. Stan Lathan was a stickler for keeping our poems to 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and we never did understand why. Because poets can write forever. You know, we'll be up in the 17th minute and still be in the middle of the poem. So all of us were just like struggling with cutting it shorter for the San Francisco and Broadway. But other than that, after we got over that, which we realized it was actually a better thing. But after we got over that, then that was pretty much it for me. Performance was just a natural. Again, I'm blessed to be a natural performer and natural good looks. Crazy.
The Broadway show ran from 2002 to 2003, and then the HBO show ran until 2007. So what happened next for you after both those shows kind of ended?
After the Broadway show ended, we ended up touring and going all around the world, which was awesome. Like I said, Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, London, just we went. Then we did a national tour also in America, which went to every state in America except Alaska. Literally, like for 2 years, we were just touring. So right after Broadway was strictly touring, which was unbelievable and awesome, amazing, and I loved it. And while the show was taken, so we'd fly back to New York and tape the show. Then we'd go back to Denver and do a show there in Denver. So it was one of the most fun times in my life because I absolutely love performing. So to be able to be performing every night in a different city, like a rock star, but be a poet, was just amazing to me. And then after the show in 2007 ended, my wife was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2003. So after 2007, it started to progress and get a little worse. So my touring kind of slowed down. My individual touring slowed down a lot of it actually. And I started concentrating on my family and concentrating on her and then my 2 kids and all the stuff.
I want to ask you about your 2 daughters and your wife, but I want to start it with I think I learned more about or learned more that your wife was battling MS through the poem "The Atheist." But what's interesting about the poem to me is that it starts off very humorous, and then you get into more serious matters where you talk about your daughter, you talk about your wife having MS. What was the reaction to that poem when, I guess you first performed it, and you got to this point and people aren't laughing, and then also was it an emotionally tough poem to write for you, or is it something that easy? It's easy to write not because it's an easy subject matter to take on, but it's just so real to you that it comes out naturally.
It's definitely real to me. Writing it comes out naturally, and it's just this is how I write. But usually, a lot of times, especially I have a lot of poems about my wife's condition and stuff. That they get hard to perform for some reason. Writing it, I write it and it comes out, it flows out easily. But then when I perform it, there is I don't know, something comes out of me when I perform it. I don't. To this day, I don't know. Like there's some poems that I read. Like if I read Atheist right now, I would probably tear up while I'm reading it, while I'm performing it. It's just because I'm living that life. Like every day, I'm living that life with my wife. MS is a very hard disease, and I'm trying to raise 2 little small children. It's just even me talking about it now. It's rough. It's hard. There's no other sugarcoat way to say it. It's a very hard thing to do. It's especially being a creative person and being a caretaker for your wife and your kids, and not necessarily getting the chance to to go out and perform as much as you used to, and and really express yourself. It's more so of being home and doing what you should do. The responsibility is taking care of your family. So it's kind of, that balance of trying to find that creative stuff and taking care of your family is a very hard thing. And then just the actual fact of she's disabled is a hard thing. So those poems now, like I haven't read Atheist in I don't know how long, but if I read it now, I'm sure that I would break down while I performed it. It just comes out that way.
I see him in the logical fact that I have breath to speak this poem. I see him in the smile of my daughters, Genesis and Journey. I see God when they dance like they were born to do so, and when they think they're talking, when their brain learns something new. I see God when she gets up and consoles me when I'm sad, when she comes and hugs me when I walk through the door. When I look at them, I don't see science. I see God when my wife laughs, the same exact laugh she laughed before any pain and turmoil entered her life. Oh, God, are you serious? I see God when nothing has changed her. I see him when she holds her head up high. Before MS, before she was unable to walk, when others would break down and cry, she stands strong and tall, giving me the strength to move on. This is my kind of proof. YouTube might not.
You talked about being the caretaker, and since you have two young daughters, and you're the sole, you're kind of pretty much the sole caretaker, I imagine.
Yeah.
When there's more, when there's more pressure on you now to provide for your family, and the way you provide for your family is through your art, is there ever a worry that you put too much pressure on yourself and get writer's block, or has this kind of new purpose for you made more art come out for you?
There's not a worry about if I get writer's block, because writer's block, I have a whole little thing about writer's block that I don't believe that there is a thing called writer's block, because I've written poems, or I've sat down to write and nothing comes out, or some stuff comes out and I'm like, oh, this is terrible, and I throw it away, blah, blah, blah. But then I've learned that if I didn't throw it away, like if I write something and I accidentally keep it, and then I come back and look at it 4 weeks later, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. So writer's block is not necessarily that you can't write. It is that you think that everything you write, it's a mind thing. You think that everything you write is trash. That's what it is.
Right.
Because you go, I can't write anything. This is terrible. But if you go back and look at it in a different mindset, 4 weeks later, you'll be like, oh my God, this was some good stuff. Why did I think this is trash? But a lot of us throw it away and we don't ever see it again. You know what I mean? We don't know. We just go through life going, I went through this period. Yeah, dude, you went through a period, but you're still writing some great stuff. To me, writer's block is if your hands are broken and you can't write anymore. I can't type. Oh my God, I broke my hand. I got writer's block. For real. But not. It's all a mental thing. So I'm never worried about writer's block. I am worried about providing. You know what I mean, for my family, because that's what I am, a creative person. That's like I don't know how to do anything else. I literally don't know how to do anything else. I can write. And thank God that he's given me that talent. I can act, and do creative stuff that way, and write stories and act in stories. But as far as, I don't know, fixing tires, or I don't even know how to change a tire. I don't know how to do anything but that. And God has given me that as a good thing. So when I feel like I can't do that to make money, then I worry. And then how do I provide for my family?
I'm Chris Hahn, the Aggressive Progressive. Check out a new episode of the Aggressive Progressive podcast every Tuesday. The election is heating up just as the year is winding down. Stick with me. I'll tell you the truth as I see it. Download the Aggressive Progressive on Pandora or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you in search of deeper meaning in your life? Longing to manifest your true desires and unlock your full potential? Look no further than Portal Místico Podcast, your gateway to treasure trove of transformative tools, enlightening interviews, and enriching content. I'm your host, Elena Maggio, and it's my heartfelt desire to guide you on this extraordinary journey of self-discovery. And with every episode, I'm passionate about sharing and introducing you to new topics in self-development, metaphysics, astrology, the law of attraction, numerology, interviews that will illuminate your path and fuel your own personal growth. This podcast is your wellspring of inspiration dedicated to help you uncover your purpose with unwavering passion. Together, we'll dive deep into the fascinating topics and explore endless possibilities. Listen to Portal Místico on Pandora, Apple Podcast, or your favorite platform.
Poetri, you obviously you have a long list of poems, and you tackle subjects based such as like weight, finances, relationships, anger, driving, road rage. How do you come up with the concepts for these poems? But also, like, what is the ideal, I guess, writing situation for you? Like something about road rage. I imagine you're driving and you're like, "Hey, that's a good poem. That guy has road rage." But I imagine you also don't start writing the poem in the middle of the driving. So how does it work for you?
Particularly for road rage, it wasn't that I looked at somebody else and said they have road rage. I listened to myself and said that I have road rage. I am absolutely crazy on the road. Just I will cuss you out left and right, and then smile at you. Nice guy, if I run you in the street. If I'm in the car, though, man.
I mean, come on. I'm driving here. That tells me that you don't have any respect for my driving capabilities. And I don't care how long it takes me. I will hunt you down and cut you off right back. Beep, 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 beep.
Most of my poems are coming from personal experience of how I deal with things. And then, like I said, since I'm thinking that they're serious poems, surely when I write them down, I'm still thinking it's a serious poem. It just turns out to be a funny poem. But yeah, I don't write it when it just builds up in my head over a couple of days of just thinking about, let's say, driving. It's just lines come up in my head and they just stay in there. And then when I sit down finally to write it, it just literally flows out. Some poems take me 20 minutes to write because I've been thinking about them for a week in my head. So when I sit down to write, it just flow out.
You obviously not just write poems without any. It's just straight poetry without music or anything. But you also write poems with beat with them, and the genre, as you've been called, po-hop, right?
Yes, poetry and hip hop.
So that's kind of going back to what we originally talked about, how you originally started out being, writing raps that you thought weren't that great and went back to poetry. So how did you, what did you feel like, why did you jump back into creating a poetry with a beat? What does the beat help you accomplish with the poem that you felt you couldn't accomplish just with a straight poem?
Well, like literally, I had this idea, and I think I'm the first one, but of course, I'm going to say that. But like 15 years ago, I was like, man, they should have poetry with music, but not only because people were writing poetry and music all day, but like make it a real song. At that time, people would just have a beat and they would do their whole poem over the beat, and that's it. I'm like, but no, let's do 16 verses, or you know what I'm saying, and put a chorus in there. And do it because I was frustrated with music as well as I was frustrated with poetry because I'm always trying to think of ways to take poetry to the next level. So let's take it to the next level by making it a song, making it an actual song, but it's an actual poem. So you're not compromising any of it. It's a real dope poem. It's a straight up poem. If you didn't have music, you would do that as a poem. And if you do have music, you just bring it in and it is a song with chorus that people can sing over and over again and all that stuff. So that's what I was thinking 15, 20 years ago, thinking how dope and incredible it was. Then I hooked up with my man Dericky from Def Poetry. He did the music for Def Poetry, Dericky Mack. And we got together about, it's got to be 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and did our first album called the Po-Hop, man, because he was on the same. We think same. We think the same with moving things to the next level. So it was kind of easy to work with him. He provided the beat, and I provided the poem, and we worked together on the chorus, and then we have magic that nobody knows about.
Some of the tracks you guys did were love poem.
I like you more than chicken and French fries. More than chicken. Not when I'm real hungry, but most of the time. I like you a lot more than a lot more than a lot. I want a little of you laughing through my bloodstream.
Oops, I
Far in, The very far end of the bleachers, I saw snow that fell gently, forming a glow with tranquility around her.
And the latest one is Heaven Sent.
I'm not from here. I smile at folks, say hi to strangers, weird stuff like that.
And you just kind of mentioned he had the beat, you had the poem. Is it like the sense of an MC that writes to a beat, or a producer that creates their beat around lyrics? Is that how you write? Is that how the writing process happens for you when you're creating this?
No. For the most part, I just write the poem in general. Then he sends me the beat, and that's whatever beat. I like that one. I don't like this one. I like this one. I pick a beat, and then I go do it to the song. I don't. If you listen to it, I don't try to make it as a. I'm very conscious of trying not to make it a rap, because I don't want to be rap. I want to be a genuine poem. So it may go off beat, may go on beat. It's just you just got this fly dope beat behind you, and you're saying this deep poem or funny poem or whatever, however you look at it, and they just mesh together. It seems to work. When you stay genuine to both art forms, it seems to work. If I tried to kind of rap with it, then it wouldn't work, because I'm a terrible rapper. You know what I mean? They'd be like, dude, what is this guy doing? 1985, he's old. So it just doesn't sound right, because I'm not a rapper. But I am a poet. So when I put this poem, there's something that I know that I've done. I'm an award-winning poet. I've been touring around the world. This is just what I do for years. And I take that art form and put it to this music. It just fits. I don't know how to explain it. It just fits perfectly.
Your latest track is Heaven Sent. For you, what was the purpose of this track?
I believe that we're all on this earth. God is my man. So, I'm a firm believer in Him and His Son Jesus Christ, and just the reason why we're here. So, and I believe He blesses us. But what we get confused on is, because the Lord is blessing us, that life is going to be easy and life is going to be, this is going to be a piece of cake. Oh, yeah, because God loves me. God loves you. But what I'm still working on is He still lets you go through the mess to learn this, or whatever reason He lets you go through all this heartache and pain to let you learn this or that, or whatever His reason is. And that's what I'm trying to say with Heaven Sent, of how, even though I'm from heaven, so you guys just remember that you're from someplace different than this earth. We get caught on this earth and thinking this is it, this is the end of it. I was born here, this is where I'm gonna die, and it's it. But no, we're from a higher place. We're just put on this earth just to change lives, bring souls to Christ, and live and make this world a better place. Not just to live here and do nothing. So when you realize you're from heaven, all these struggles that you're going through, are going to be are going to be done. When you die, they're going to be done, and you're going to go back up to the place where you really live.
Before I ask you what's next, I was curious. You obviously have a lot of poems under your belt. Is there kind of a poem that you've written that right now that kind of defines where you're at artistically?
Usually, my latest poem is always the one that where I'm at. This is just. And that's about just the struggles I'm having with what we talked about, being creative and also taking care of my family. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. In my last 10 poems about in one form or another about just surviving creatively, but still being a responsible adult. That thing that we have to be, and taking care of the family and just doing what's right and making sure they eat.
So what's next for you in terms of this? You have this, I mentioned the single Heaven Sent. Is that a part of an album? Is that just this one-off single?
Right now, Ricky and I are thinking about putting together a full album out. This will be our first one in about 5 years, so it's an undertaking, and I'm trying to just debate if I want to do it. I love doing it, so I'm sure it's a possibility. But right now, we just put out Heaven Sent just to see. It's like a reunion of him and I to getting back together doing this. So we're just excited about doing it. So right now, we're just throwing it against the wall, see if it sticks. So hoping people go to Apple Music or Spotify or wherever. You can get it everywhere. So go to Apple iTunes and go pick it up, and we'll go from there.
He's a Tony Award winner, 7-time Def Poet, an artist, producer. New track is Heaven Sent. Poetri, thank you so much for joining me on The Library with Tim Heinekel.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having me.
I'm Chris Hahn, the Aggressive Progressive. Check out a new episode of the Aggressive Progressive podcast every Tuesday. You know, the election is heating up just as the year is winding down. Stick with me. I'll tell you the truth as I see it. Download the Aggressive Progressive on Pandora or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you in search of deeper meaning in your life? Longing to manifest your true desires and unlock your full potential? Look no further than Portal Místico podcast, your gateway to treasure trove of transformative tools, enlightening interviews, and enriching content. I'm your host, Elena Maggio, and it's my heartfelt desire to guide you on this extraordinary journey of self-discovery. And with every episode, I'm passionate about sharing and introducing you to new topics in self-development, metaphysics, astrology, the law of attraction, numerology, interviews that will eliminate your path and fuel your own personal growth. This podcast is your wellspring of inspiration dedicated to help you uncover your purpose with unwavering passion. Together, we'll dive deep into the fascinating topics and explore endless possibilities. Listen to Portal Místico on Pandora, Apple Podcast, or your favorite platform.
I keep things 99 because I be lying sometimes. Right. I'm definitely not an angel. I was born something higher. I eat chicken every single day and my thought process is not normal. I'm thinking if you don't stir fry your veggies, yo, you're wrong, dog. See, I wasn't built in this realm. I keep telling you this. Life is not a game. But everywhere I look, humans keep playing. So when this is over, I plan on going back. Mom and pops are waiting on me. Just gotta finish my flights down here and I'm out, homie. Sometimes I fly too close to the sun and my head gets bigger when I spit fire. But God gave me these wings and dropped me on cloud 9. So these extensions that he gave me, you know, they ain't really mine. My attitude gets cocky when you can't understand what I meant. Sometimes even I forget that I was heaven sent. Don't get it twisted. I was surprised when God first dropped me from heaven. There were times I didn't know if I would make it through it. I felt from grace like I was meant to do it. I fell in love with stars who only let me down. Got mooned by the moon every single night. Plunged through clouds of lies, deceit, and hatred. Storms made my flight feeling like I was falling through the matrix. Rain had me crying tears that you could not see. But it was only to heal me, mold me, and shape me. I started off looking awkward and ended up being cut like a diamond. Through it all, God kept throwing me a hint that reminded me I was heaven sent.
Hey, I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, in celebration of International Guitar Month, Pete Townsend of The Who will join us.
Pete went deep with us into his relationship with the guitar and with music in general, the new Broadway version of Tommy. He clarified the status and the future of The Who, and much, much more.
Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.